when a wrestling show is good, you watch it from start to finish. You're entertained. You don't go back at the end of the show, review the ratings of the matches, and then determine how good the show was. You're supposed to experience the show, not critique the show. Let me tell you. I'll give you an example of something where I agree with you. Let me tell you something. Let me finish. Okay, and then you go into your thing. Because Meltzer said something that just shows where he's coming from. He says that booking wrestling should be very simplistic and very it shouldn't be confusing at all, or just it should the booking should be so simple. All we care about is the matches. Right. And how good they are. It's no, people want their brains challenged. They want to ask questions. They want to they want to be confused because they want to try to figure things out. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's the way fans of good TV shows react. People don't watch. Bro, if you thought you knew what was going to happen in every episode of Breaking Bad, would you watched it? How many shows would you watch? I predict what's going to happen. The show happened. Predict the next show is going to happen. You'd lose interest. You know what I'm saying? You want things to be unpredictable. Well, the last time they did something unpredictable where everyone was excited to find out what was going to happen was when Kurt Angle had a big secret. And look how they finished that off. They start out well and they can't finish. The finishes are always terrible.
Bro, let me tell you. So I always used to think when I would wrestle guys like, for example, what's this guy's name? Jim Duggan, right? Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, yeah, that match was 1 star. And I was like, bro, I was in the ring with him, and the guy's more over than just about anybody in that dressing room except maybe the main star. The guy's over. They chant his shit. His shit is easy to understand. Mm-hmm. The clothesline, the thing, the boom, the yo-ho, and all that.
Audience
and that to me is right. And that doesn't, so you're right. It shouldn't just be about work rate. Those other things have to be taken into account. Because that was an entertaining match.
Right. You can speak for the fan. The one thing, let me tell you something. The one thing most guys wanted to do when you're working in an organization is you want to be working with the guy that gets the best reaction. Then you want to work with probably second on the list would be the guy that's the best worker. That's creatively, you're thinking, wow, we could do some pretty cool shit out there. But probably if you ask most professional wrestlers, they ask, who do you want to wrestle? Well, who are they going to say? I want to wrestle the most over guy. I want my reaction to be the loudest. I want that's what we want to perform. We don't give a rat. We don't care, bro. The wrestlers today wrestle too much for Meltzer and not enough for the people, and I think that's a problem. I definitely think that's a problem. You
say for Meltzer, there's a lot of people who don't even know who he is. That's bullshit. Just what they like.
But I'll tell you what, the indie, everybody in PWG knows who he is. Everybody in Ring of Honor knows who he is. Most of the WWE fans know who he is. Most of the New Japan fans, all the New Japan fans, know. Bro, for the people that we know in wrestling, for people that we know in wrestling and the workers.
Right.
Okay, don't tell me all the workers don't know who he is. Okay, every worker knows who he is.
But you act like everything he says, people have to, there's stuff that. Let me tell you,
I bet you this,
bro. I read his shit, so let me tell you.
If they knew that Dave Meltzer was in the crowd at one of their matches, they would wrestle Of course,
he's an influencer in our business.
Thank you. You're making my argument for me.
Right.
90% of the guys, you said I could wrestle Ricochet in front of Dave Meltzer in the crowd for free, or wrestle the Disco Inferno for $2,000 in Las Vegas. What do you think most people would? What do you think most of the guys would say?
I know
these wrestlers today. That's a good question. That's a good question, isn't it?
Pretty
because
good.
In their minds, they think, oh, if I have a match with Ricochet, it's going to get me to I can market this match and make more money. And Meltzer's going to, that's how these people think. And I'm like, bro, just go out there and work with the fans. Entertain your audience. It's like, shit, Jesus.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Dave just writes what the industry does, At the end of the day.
He's a critique of matches.
Yeah, but just like you used to go. Well, let me say something. Just like you used to go, right, to Cisco all the time to see what you thought about his movie choices, right? Because you like his opinion, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of people like his opinion.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is let me tell you what the problem is. This is like going on, watching. If you're watching CNN for news, okay. Right. And they're giving you news, and at the same time, they're telling you shit that they like and don't like. It's called editorial privilege. You should be one or the other. If you're doing news, you're giving an unbiased account of what happens. If you're critiquing things, you're not giving news. You're giving your opinion of what you think something is.
Well, because people like his opinion.
Disco, you listen.
But that's my point.
You listen to a lot of sports podcasts, right? Or read, Sports Illustrated or whatever. I mean, those are reporters that are giving their opinions on whether or not this guy's a good player or whether or not whatever. It's the same thing, wouldn't you say?
Well, respect their opinion.
They're editorials.
But you respect
articles,
their opinion.
Their opinion, right? But I'm saying his opinion of matches are not historical facts. The people in this business kind of like look at his ratings of matches as historical facts, which they're not. They're just opinions. That's my point.
Yeah.
But his opinion specifically holds a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And my point is that if you look at the history and the scope of the business these days, is the stuff he likes does not show any type of metric or anything to drawing or making you a lot of money or drawing a big audience. He likes spot monkeys. He likes that style of work. He likes guys that
he just likes entertaining matches, bro. He likes New Japan matches that there are no spot monkeys in. He loves UFC. Yes.
Well, I'll say
bro,
this.
I think, wait a minute, let me just say this. I've been very informed by Dave. As you know, he's my boy. I think that a lot of this might be, and tell me if I'm wrong, because of all the shade that he's thrown on Vince.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
No,
have you met him?
Dave Meltzer, yes, I've met him a couple times.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, bro. He's not a mean.
I've never said he's not. I said him in the past. Yeah. He's written inaccuracies about me specifically.
Right.
Okay. Never apologized for it, but I didn't ask for apology. But I'm just saying this. I don't care about that because it's so far long ago. But it still happened. Okay. Right. And what it did was it molded an opinion that I had of him.
Right.
Okay. Bro, if somebody lied about you. What would your opinion going forward be? You wouldn't be like you would be
somebody that he must have trusted must have given him bad info.
Right, but also
I don't think he's going to invent it.
I've also watched like what you've said. I've seen him give bad ratings.
Right.
Okay, like low stars and stuff to what I consider really good matches.
Right.
Because they used stuff like what you talked about.
Right.
Audience participated, guys over, stuff like you know what I'm saying. Like he'll give Jim Duggan a dud, but we like shit. That's a 3-star match. It was simple stuff. That's where I do. He could give 4, 5, 6 star. I don't care about all that. Okay, because guys work too hard to get that. But what I'm saying is the thing that I've been critical of him in the past is when he gives duds and low matches to guys that are actually going out there. They're working hard, but just because they're not doing a lot of stuff and risking a lot of stuff, that discounts from the match. And I think you would agree with that too. That he's like you even said. He said some matches were like dud or 1 star,
I disagree with that. But I know that if Dave tells me a match is 4 or 5 stars, that's a good match. I don't have to worry about watching it and going, wow, this is.
Well, here's.
Most people are going to say if he tells you it's a 6-star match, I'm going to say no, that was 2. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a different argument. But it's
I like to use it for that because
I go back and watch some of my matches. I wrestled
at a show. Let me just say real quick. I'll look at a show and I'll see what matches had stars and I'll read a little bit about it to see if I'm interested anyways. And if I see that he gives a match, over 4 stars, I know or 4 stars or more, I know that's a good match.
Probably, but I will say this is that he discounts the art of selling way too much when he rates his matches. That's one thing I think that is and that's a thing that I think resonates through the business. Is guys do too much, they kick out of too many things, just do, and matches like that he like I said he doesn't.
You know what? Let's bring him on here and ask him that because I think he does appreciate selling. I just think he knows that a lot of matches don't have selling in them, and you still have to judge him. I don't know what he thinks, so I don't really want to talk for him. But we should try to get him on.
His star rating system is still the list.
Okay.
And so is Kleinrock's clusterfuck rating system.
Tremendous.
That's still on the list. And he didn't give any this week. Did you notice that?
No, he didn't.
Right. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How many hours do you put into writing the newsletter each week, on the average?
I couldn't even tell you. I mean, pretty much all the time, constantly.
Right.
It's not gathering information; it's writing. Yeah, the writing would be, I don't know. I mean, all day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, except for the breaks when I take to watch the shows.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Do you watch the shows start to finish?
Yeah.
You do. See, you watch in real time.
I watch Raw in real time, and I watch the streaming shows in real time, and SmackDown I sometimes watch in real time, and sometimes I'll watch later and fast forward through the commercials.
Do you have DirecTV?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're with me. Yeah, I gotta cry. See, I can't even watch it real time. There's so much like a segment of the audience that can't like. I'm just like, you know, I watch. Here's how I watch it. I read Jason Powell's review of the show. Okay, and what looks good, I'll DVR and I'll go back to watch.
Hello.
And then even that became like kind of tiresome after a while. Now they got all these. There's a bunch of like YouTube channels that will put up like a 25 to 35 minute condensed version of everything good on the show. Just you watch it straight, so you don't have to like fast forward to Raw. Just talk about watching Raw. You know.
The problem is that I have to talk about the bad stuff, so I have to watch the bad stuff.
Right. You got to watch everything. See, that's the thing. I can't. I mean, if like the stuff gets too bad for me, I can't. I can't watch it. It's like I just can't. I can't. It's I either fast forward or just stop watching it.
That tells you there's too much product.
Yep.
If it's a chore to keep up, if it's a chore to keep up, then there's too much out there. I think that I agree with that. If I was not writing, I wonder how much I would watch. I know I would watch some, but I'm sure I wouldn't.
Okay,
watch or 2 hours a week. When
you grew up watching what? Because you moved around a lot. So what did you grow up with? Roy Shire?
Oh, I mean, the show I would have grown up with Roy Shire stuff out of Sacramento. You know, the Roy Shire wrestling, and then we got the Los Angeles wrestling that you got. You know, the Wednesday night stuff.
Right.
So you know, I would watch that. That would be the original stuff that I watched. And then,
so back then it was an hour, so it was much more exciting. Plus, I used to love how back in the day, and they used to do this in Atlanta wrestling too, in Miami. It's like, yeah, we're running out of time. We'll be back next week, and you were like, damn, you know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah. They did in Mid-South did that a lot too.
Right.
Where they would end on a real high note, and you know you would be really excited because Mid-South was the one that when the show was over, I couldn't wait for next week's show because they always left you wanting that. You know, in time we started getting more stuff, and you know, I watched. You know, when I would go to my grandparents, I would watch the Florida, which I always liked the Florida stuff because it always seemed so real. You know, the way the presentation was.
Right. They did a great job of making real. And another thing I loved about Florida that I also saw when I started to watch Georgia Superstation was I used to love how, like in Miami, the only way you had. You know, the show on Saturday was to sell the show on Wednesday at Miami Beach Auditorium.
Right, at the Miami Beach Auditorium, yeah.
Right. And then they'd always show like the best parts of what you missed. So you wish you'd go the next week. You know, they go, this is what happened last Wednesday. Huh?
But the other thing that they would do on that show is they would revolve from different cities like they would have the regular matches in their little studio thing, right? You know, the 3 or 4 matches. Right. And then you would show highlights of like, you know, last week in Tampa or last week in Jacksonville. So they would spread it out, or last week in Miami. And I remember when like you would go and you would see the TV cameras you'd see like the TV cameras at the show in Miami, and you go, all right, we're gonna get a big match or a big angle. It was always like really exciting because they wouldn't be, you know, they would revolve different cities. I think Tampa probably had it every week since that was the home base, but like maybe once a month or every 6 weeks they would, you know, go to, you know, Sarasota or whatever city it was. And there would be the cameras there, and you would get like something, and that's where like somebody would turn, or be some storyline thing.
Right. And another thing that I used to like back then is like, you know, when they had like the regional, and even WWE was doing it back in the day when they'd have the regional promotions. I'm coming to San Bernardino to kick your ass. You know what I'm saying? And then it was just for that San Bernardino market, which I always thought was very cool. And remember, WWE used to do that.
Yeah, you had localized promos. Yeah. Well, I grew up with localized promos because we would get the same show. We would actually get, on our cable, we would get 3 versions of the San Francisco show. We would get the show out of the San Francisco station where they would be plugging the Cow Palace, the San Jose station where they would be plugging the Cow Palace but also plugging San Jose, and then the Sacramento station, which was all about the show in Sacramento. So, and they had different matches all the time in different interviews. So, you know, we got different sets of interviews with the same guys, and that's when that's when you kind of like learn about like differing interviews and different storylines in different cities, and because the storylines that they did then carried over within the city only. You know what I mean? It's like the San Jose angle didn't lead to San Francisco. It led to the next San Jose. So you know, we would kind of like follow the different city, and when they did that, sometimes like we would see an angle in Sacramento, and then 2 weeks later it would be in San Jose, the exact same angle. So it was always, we know where this thing's going, type of thing.
Right, but but only the hardcores followed that around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, if you had cable, you could at that point figure that out. Yeah.
I just think that all those ideas, like another thing from the old school days that I used to love. I used to love the interview run-in. Like a guy would be doing an interview, and in the mid-interview, somebody would come in and whoop his ass. That always, that always to me was a great instrument for getting heat. And I just think like all those things you could still use like for like a Ring of Honor or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
But I grew up. I got lucky because I was in Atlanta. Okay, we had TBS. Okay, I had WR and USA Network, so I could watch the New York and the Madison Square Garden cable shows they used to have. But I got that Joe Pedicino wrestling block.
Oh, the Saturday Night block where they did all the territories, yeah.
Saturday Night block, and I would record that. Okay, so I grew up watching 10 to 11 hours of wrestling every week from like say 12, 13 years old on through my first couple years in college. So that was like so I watched a lot of stuff
with a lot of gentlemen callers.
But the good thing that you had was that they were all different. You weren't watching 11. If you watch 11 hours of one promotion, you would probably go crazy. But it was 11 completely different stories.
It's completely different stories, and I would see like guys like a perfect example, like in Continental Wrestling. Nobody probably ever even saw this guy, but Wildcat Wendell Cooley was like one of the best young baby faces. Like that guy was like an awesome baby face, and he but I got to watch him because I was in Atlanta and they had the tape from there. But probably nobody outside of Alabama and like Atlanta, Georgia, probably even really knew who that guy was, and he was a really good worker, So it's like I got
Di. You're also
already left. So let me tell you, okay, already.
Listen to this. I grew up watching a lot of wrestling. So I'm very knowledgeable on the history of the business, basically getting just getting.
Well, if you don't know Dan Sharp, how knowledgeable are you?
Well, but that's 1950 because it's not on YouTube. I mean, it's like before.
Okay, all right.
He's knowledgeable from anything that's on YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I mean, I remember seeing All Japan run a show in Kansas City in front of 300 people, and granted, it was 42 degrees below zero that day, so it probably hurt the walk-up, but it was still 300 people with Saruta and Yatsu and Hansen and Gordy, who were big stars in the Funks. And now, if you brought in the top guys that were in Japan right now, Kenny Omega and Okada and those kind of guys, and you brought them to, a lot of cities, you would draw a pretty damn big crowd. Pretty much, I don't want to say as big as WWE, but I think in some cities you would draw better than WWE. Some cities you would draw the same, some you draw less.
Let me ask you a question, Dave. Gin and Juicing, always on Molly, a.k.a. Dexter Meltzer. What would you watch if you didn't have to write for this? Like if they said this, you know what I'm saying? What would you watch if you didn't have to write about it?
I mean, I don't really know because I've never been put in that position. I mean, I know I would watch some, and I'm sure I'd watch the pay-per-views with my friends.
Right.
And I would probably tune into Raw, but probably not watch it as closely. And maybe do other things while it's on. And are you so used to watching the whole thing that you couldn't watch the condensed version? Because believe me, the condensed version actually makes the show somewhat watchable. Yeah, I could definitely see not watching it live and fast forwarding through people that I don't find interesting if I didn't have to. Right. Because I think, I know it's funny because like. When I talked to Mike Tenay, and he would watch everything, right? Now he'll tell me like, "Oh, I can get through the show in 20 minutes." So it's
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you think are the big differences, Dave, in wrestling, the way it's presented, especially on TV, from when you were a kid to like the Attitude Era when me and Di were wrestling to what we're seeing now?
It's always changing. I mean, like when I was a kid, one of the things when I was a kid was that you only had 1 hour a week. Right. And I would watch that hour probably over and over again to make sure I didn't miss anything or if it was good because it was like the only hour you had. I like the angles when I was a kid. The one thing about the angles, because every show now has like an angle in every segment, and we would only get a couple of angles a year. Florida would get like a lot more than that, but in San Francisco would only get a couple a year. But every time they did one, the house would always pop because it was so rare. So it kind of like taught me, it's like, okay, there's a balance. Like if you do an angle all the time, none of the angles are ever going to get over. If you do an angle very rarely, it will get over, but there's probably like a happy medium between that. Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing like dives in matches. Everybody does a dive now and it doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right, perfect example. Remember the angle that started Snuka in Morocco back in WWE? Snuka just jumped over the top rope on ringside. That was like a major angle back then. It's like, wow, they were off and running, you know. Just growing up watching everything, I became like, because I watched on VCR, I'd always got used to, you know, fast forwarding through the bulk of the matches unless it was a big match, seeing the finish and watching all the interviews. Like all the interviews I would watch start to finish, and that's you know. It's kind of like wrestling today. It's like, geez, like what you know, it takes too long to even fast forward through these things sometimes, you know.
Well, we had 90-second interviews, or maybe 2 minutes. We didn't have 15.
Bro, Piper's Pit was like a 2-minute segment every week. Like the mileage that Roddy Piper got out of 2 to 3 minutes of TV time every week was unbelievable. It's like, you can't, you know, did there really anybody like that? Like who could do that today? You know, like a guy that you see out there is like, wow, if you just gave this guy 2 minutes every week, he would just like nail it and, you know, get this massive heat. You know, but it's just such a different format with the 3 hours and the 2 hours. Like, my God, it's just, I don't know.
Even Dusty, I'll bet you if you watch all those classic Dusty interviews, I'll bet you they're almost all under 2 minutes.
Probably, yeah, absolutely.
Bro, and not only that, Dave, we lived it because for a while, me and Disco, you remember this, we were on Nitro and Thunder. You know, because we knew on Thunder we'd get more airtime. And, bro, it was just very, even for the wrestler, you know what I'm saying? You were just so tired from those 2 shows and everything that it takes to prepare. And, you know what I'm saying? A week. And then you add on top of that, whatever else they're doing. They got other, I don't know what other shows they have, but you know what I'm saying? It isn't just 2 shows.
Yeah.
Hey, me and Konnan have been joking about this for a few weeks now, and we've been wanting to bring you on and ask you about this. Okay,
are you going to ask him about the Hall of Fame?
Yes. You recently, in the recent Observer, you voted. Who's Ben and Mike Sharp got voted to the Hall of Fame? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Who? Okay, bro. This is no disrespect to these guys. I can't even find a Ben Sharp clip on YouTube. Like who was this guy?
You know what? It was if they they were in the 50s. There's not a lot of footage from the 50s.
He thinks this is what he thinks, that there's a North California bias by you.
Yes.
Because you live in San Jose and they were North California guys.
Yes.
They actually were Northern California guys, but I have nothing to do with that. But they got in because of Japan votes, not because of Northern California votes. They were legendary in Japan. I mean, the Sharp brothers essentially, were the American heels that introduced pro wrestling in Japan, and they're. I mean, when kids go to school in the history books, they're taught about Ricky Dozan and Kimura against the Sharp brothers. It's like we're taught about Dwight Eisenhower since it was the same era.
Well, he also has. Oh, here's another thing that's going to get heat with you, Disco. Guess what country they're from?
Where are they from?
Canada.
Are they really?
That's heat right
from
there.
Hamilton, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How many? Because to me, all these. I mean, I'm a big I don't care about Hall of Fames. Like to me, even in baseball, football,
because he's never going to be in one.
Well, I'm just saying it's never been. There's never been exact science to what gets you in the Hall of Fame.
And there's less of one in wrestling than there's in baseball.
Right, especially when Pete Rose is in the WWE. Is he in the WWE one?
Yeah, Pete Rose in the WWF one,
right.
WWE one, yeah, and he's not in the baseball one, yeah, which makes all
That's
sense
awesome. He's not in the baseball, but he's in the wrestling. Yeah,
right. And Trump is. We got a WWE Hall of Famer in the White House. I want to.
And they won't admit it. And they won't admit it now because he's president. He's so polarizing.
Right. We
They want to hide that he's in their Hall of Fame ever since he. You would think it's the craziest thing. You would think that they had someone who used to be on their TV that's the actual president of the United States. Right. And who would have ever thought that they would have the frickin' president that used to do angles on Raw, and they're hiding it because they're so afraid that their fan base would revolt against him because of it.
Right.
Linda's a Republican, and I think she was didn't she get
hired?
Staff.
She's on the staff. One of the Republicans. Like Jesus, yeah. Here's a question. How many people do submit votes for your hall? How many guys do you have doing this? That actually
I'm thinking it was. I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure it was well over 300. I know that this year. It was
let me ask. Wait, real quick. Let me ask JoJo. Are you still on here, JoJo?
Yeah, I'm here.
How many people are on the Toy Figures Company committee to pick figurines? Is it that many?
It's 9.
9. Okay.
Yeah, they wanted to keep that an odd number.
Okay, but Michael, how do you get to be a part of the voting committee? Did you just ask, or do people how did you find 300 people to do this?
I have I go through my email list of everyone that's either a wrestler or a reporter or someone who's, basically wrestlers, reporters,
Dave,
historians.
let me stop you. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there. I'm going to stop. Let me tell you where this is going. Why is he not one of the guys that's voting people in? That's what he wants to know.
Number one, and number two,
because he didn't send me because I don't have his email address.
And I gave him my email. Number two, how come I've never been elected to the been nominated for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame? I think my resume matches up to Ben Sharp. Because Ben Sharp doesn't even have any YouTube clips.
When they teach you in the history books, let me know.
Well, I'm saying at least I'm in the history of YouTube. Ben Sharp's not even on YouTube. It's like you Google Ben Sharp and you really can't find much on the guy. It's like this is the Google era. I think I'm gonna campaign to have my name just submitted for entry into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame voting process. How about
all right?
How about that?
So let me tell you where the heat comes in, Dave. For months and months, Disco's been burying you because you love Japanese wrestling, all right, which he hates. And number two,
no. Never said I hated it. I said there's things that they do in their matches that I will never be a fan of. Okay.
All right. And you also said no Japanese guy will ever get over in the United States, right?
Nakamura's already over.
No, never said that. I said if you don't speak good English, it's very difficult for Japanese.
That good English.
Then he said, and then honestly, he really hadn't. I mean, until now. He hasn't gotten over like everybody thought he would have coming in.
Well, because they didn't book him right.
He was over like crazy in NXT, and then he came up to the main roster, and they booked him with Jinder.
So that's Disco's world, NXT doesn't count.
That killed Randy Orton just as well.
Time out.
And Muda had a great run in 1989.
But Disco says that's 30 years ago. That don't count. So
that's what I'm saying.
He's like a knocked up nun. He has more excuses than anybody. Yeah.
Can I speak for myself here? And I want to ask this. Here's my opinion. Okay, my opinion on the Japanese wrestlers is that there's a multitude of guys from American wrestlers that went over to Japan and got on top and got over huge. Very few Japanese wrestlers have come over here and gotten over huge. And my thing is, and I think it hurts when you can't speak English to an American audience, and your English is not that
good. Can I say something?
And then, everything's a factor.
Okay, can I say something? And then, Dave, you say what you need to say. Yeah, but Americans, when they were brought to Japan, they were respected. They were the big evil monsters or the big, they put them over. Every Japanese guy that came here, just about every Japanese guy had some stereotypical racist bullshit gimmick. It's very hard to get over like that, but go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot of them in the territorial days, that were got over to a degree as far as, headlining and stuff, but they were doing the stereotypical thing that you talked about. And a lot of those, and some of those were Hawaiians and not even Japanese, but they pretended to be Japanese. Right. But, it's just culturally, put it this way, like an American movie can go to Japan and do business, okay? A Japanese movie that comes to the United States, how much business is it going to do? So there is a cultural thing there. Mm-hmm. But as time has gone on, the world has become a smaller place because, it used to be, if I would watch, like, wrestling from Mexico, it would be a completely different style from wrestling in the United States. And I'd watch wrestling from Japan be a different style. And now, if I watch, like, Ring of Honor, I'm going to see some Lucha Libre, and I'm going to see Japanese style, and I'm going to see American style all blended into one because the people who are growing up now, they're watching... and European style, they're watching everything and trying to learn from everything, which, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but it's the world is a smaller place, and when it comes to stuff like that, just this year alone, it's just astounded me. It's blown me away how, between, like, the guys who have been able to do their, just basically through the internet with very little television, be able to get and draw pretty well. And even like the New Japan shows when they come to, the New Japan shows in Long Beach, like I would have never thought a year ago that they would come in and be able to sell 10,000 tickets. And now it's like, they haven't done it yet, but it's very clear from last week that they could easily for a show. So it's like, and that could have never happened in a different year. New Japan couldn't have come in.
Well, let me ask you this. Should Kenny Omega go to New York or should he stay in Japan?
Okay. He's already made his decision for this year. So this year he's going to be in Japan. And I'm pretty sure, given what I can kind of see is happening this year, he probably should stay in Japan this year. Next year is another year, and it's like it depends on a lot of different things, and it depends on what they're paying him. I mean, it's like which and everyone's different. Would you rather make, say, $600,000 a year and work 70 days a year, or 80 days a year, or 90 days a year, or make $1 million a year and work 200 days a year? And it's like everyone will have a different answer. And I don't know what his answer is, but that's kind of like where you're going. And maybe you could make more than $1 million, but maybe you don't. Maybe you make less, because a lot of the guys that go to WWE make substantially more than they would have ever made had they never gone. But there are a lot of guys who've gone that made less than they were making before. So you never know.
A lot of guys are making. A lot of guys making more in the Indies. The reason I ask this is like I don't think we'll ever know how really good Kenny Omega is until he tries his hand at weekly American television. Because like we can sit there and watch like guys like him can have great matches. Okay, in Japan right now, basically, because that's basically what they're selling us is great matches. But there's more tools you need to be in like a well-rounded professional wrestler than just having.
Watch Being the Elite. Watch Being the Elite.
I watched clips of some of it. Yeah, some of it's funny. Yeah, I watched some of that. Yeah.
So all I know is that in the last episode of Being the Elite, the stuff that he did, his stuff there blows away anything that WWE's doing, as far as that aspect of getting your personality over and doing skits and things like that.
Plus, bro, did you see?
Now that doesn't mean he'll make it there, because you know how you can never predict. I've seen super talented guys go to WWE, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out for them, and it's just because they're not given a chance.